Miss Pollywobble by Jennifer Jordan. Miss Pollywobble put another log on the fire and watched it blaze merrily away. It was a bitterly cold evening, and Baggy, her ginger cat, sat very close to the fire. Outside, the snow started to fall, and by bedtime, the countryside was covered by a huge white snowy blanket. "We haven't many logs left," said Miss Pollywobble the next morning, as she gave Baggy his milk and his sardines for breakfast. "I've ordered some from the village. Maybe they will come today." Baggy purred happily and tucked into his food. But the snow continued to fall steadily and almost covered the cottage. Miss Pollywobble and Baggy began to feel very cold. They had run out of logs, and none could be delivered because the roads were blocked by snowdrifts. Miss Pollywobble wore 2 dresses, 3 cardigans, a woolly hat, and a pair of big fur boots. She ate hot soup and toast and managed to keep warm. Baggy stopped purring altogether and shivered miserably. He snuggled up to Miss Pollywobble to keep warm. "Poor Baggy," she cried, cuddling him close to her. "Let's find you a blanket." She opened the cupboard and out fell a big bag of wool. Can you see all that wool? Look at Baggy down here. Miss Pollywobble. Oh, now look at this. After staring at it thoughtfully for some time, she said, "I've just had the most marvellous idea, Baggy. I shall knit something to keep us both warm." She found a large pair of knitting needles and made herself comfortable. All day and all night she clicked away as the knitting grew bigger and bigger. At last it was finished. It was enormous! Baggy was very puzzled. He watched as Miss Pollywobble went outside carrying her largest broom. She pulled a ladder out from under the snow and climbed up onto the roof. Then she swept every bit of snow from the walls and roof until they were spotlessly clean. She then returned indoors to fetch the marvellous idea and climbed the ladder again. With a few tugs and a few pulls, the knitting fell into place. Baggy blinked hard. Miss Pollywobble had knitted a gigantic red tea cosy. It fitted the cottage perfectly. The hole for the handle was over the front door, and the hole for the spout was over the back door. The chimney poked through the red pom-poms on the top. It was a little dark inside the cottage, but it was beautifully warm. Baggy snuggled down happily, and Miss Pollywobble took off her big fur boots. They were warm inside their giant tea cosy and didn't mind at all when it began to snow again. It snowed steadily for days. One morning, Miss Pollywobble woke up to find the cottage strangely lit and extremely cold. She quickly flung open the window. "Baggy," she cried sadly, "our tea cosy, it's disappeared." Baggy shivered sadly. Miss Pollywobble looked hard at the snow-covered countryside. Whoever had taken the giant tea cosy had been very careful indeed. The snow was smooth, and there were no footprints. She closed the window thoughtfully and went upstairs. She warmed some milk for Baggy's breakfast and made herself some coffee. Birds twittered noisily on the window ledge. Miss Pollywobble always gave them breadcrumbs for breakfast, and she scattered a handful from the window. As she did so, she saw something flapping gently in the snowy hedge. It was an end of red wool. "Come on, Baggy," she cried, pulling on her snowshoes. "We're going to follow that wool." Look at her putting on her snowshoes. Do you think they look like tennis rackets? They're old-fashioned snowshoes, aren't they? She put Baggy into her shopping basket and they set off. The red wool trailed over fields and farms and along narrow lanes. After many, many miles, they came to a dark, gloomy forest. A square wooden sign said, Nittingham Forest, keep out. The trail of wool led deep into the forest and then stopped suddenly. Miss Pollywobble looked all around while Baggy started digging with his front paws and then jumped back in alarm. He had found an old underground tunnel, and the red wool continued along it. Look at Miss Pollywobble's face and Baggy's face. Ooh, what's this? Inside was a large, bright room full of small, elf-like creatures. They wore green, knitted clothes and all looked alike. The floor was covered with balls of wool, and everyone was busy knitting with the tiniest needles Miss Pollywobble had ever seen. Everyone became very, very quiet. "Please don't be afraid," she said gently. "I'm Miss Pollywobble, and this is my cat, Baggy. We followed the trail of red wool from our giant tea cosy. Please tell us who you are." Then one of the elf-like creatures stepped forward. "We are the Nitwits," he said. "We live here in Nittingham Forest and spend all our time knitting." "But what do you knit?" asked Miss Pollywobble. The Nitwit led her across the room to some small drawers neatly stacked together. In the top drawer there were lots of tiny yellow knitted tubes. "In the very cold weather," explained the Nitwit, "the catkins in the forest would freeze. We knit little covers to keep them warm." Miss Pollywobble smiled. "What a lovely idea," she said. The rest of the Nitwits gathered round to show off their knitting. There were tiny red vests for the robins and pretty yellow hats for the daffodils, and long earmuffs for rabbits. There were bluebell covers and white snowdrop covers. In fact, every living thing in Nittingham Forest had something warm for the winter. Miss Pollywobble liked the Nitwits very much. "How kind you are," she said gently. One of them touched her arm. "We're so sorry we undid your giant tea cosy," he said. "But our red wool was stolen and we needed some new vests for the robins." A loud tapping on the door made everybody jump. "It's Colonel Crow!" cried the Nitwits. "He's the one who stole all our red wool to make himself a warm nest. Quick, Miss Pollywobble, hide in the wool cupboard." The door suddenly burst open. "We've no more wool for you, Colonel Crow," said a Nitwit. "If you leave us alone, we will knit you a new nest. Please go away." But the crow took no notice and started gathering wool from the floor. The Nitwits huddled together in a corner. Colonel Crow was the nastiest crow they had ever met, and they were very frightened. Then the door of the wool cupboard burst open with a crash, and out sprang Baggy, looking very angry. Colonel Crow dropped all the wool with a startled "Caw!" ran to the tunnel. Baggy chased him out into the daylight and through Nittingham Forest. He made sure that Colonel Crow flew far, far away. The Nitwits were delighted and thanked Baggy over and over again. Miss Pollywobble picked him up, popped him in her basket once more. Then she said goodbye to each Nitwit and promised to visit again soon. The sun was shining as they walked across the fields. The trees began to drip as the snow started to melt. When they arrived home, they were happy to find their logs had arrived at last and were stacked neatly against the wall of the cottage. Baggy purred happily at the thought of a blazing log fire. Some days later, Miss Pollywobble found a large brown paper parcel on the doorstep. She opened it very carefully and found a pink knitted vest for herself and a ginger coat for Baggy. She smiled fondly. She knew exactly who had sent them. Well, what do you think about that, Miss Pollywobble and Baggy, her cat, huh? This is a different story. We might do that the next time. Or we could do, look at those guys. Who do you think that is? I think we're going to do the Pumblechoke Rocket the next time by Jennifer Jordan too. Okie dokie. Bye bye bye.